Good day, beautiful souls. It is Tuesday, April 29th, 2025, and it is time to vibe with your tribe as we review the craziness of the past week's global events and how they may or may not relate to past predictions and prophecy, with, of course, some new predictions interweaved throughout today's show to help you feed your prediction addiction. So Spirit warned us of these incoming cyber attacks multiple times and power outages. And I've even had visions of a huge city going completely dark. Now, not just one, but 3 countries have been plunged into darkness as massive power outages sweep across these 3 countries: Spain, Portugal, and France, as I know you've likely heard by now. Many big cities throughout those 3 countries, their railways, their airports, their hospitals, their ATM access machines. Remember what Spirit said about having money on hand just in case? I bet you many folks in those 3 countries were wishing they had some cash on hand over the past few days during these big black outages. So was this a cyber attack? Or are they going to use some kind of lame excuse, like they often do, to steer our minds in a different direction? Or perhaps maybe they want to blame Russia for it. And what can and will this lead to in the near future? Not just for Europe, but for the entire planet. You'll also recall that many times I've discussed and predicted these high-profile arrests of celebrities, politicians, and many others. And since I first made that prediction, we saw first the Epstein case, then the P. Diddy. Then we saw the arrest this year of South Korea's former leader, and many others. But also over the past week, right here in the United States, we're seeing the arrest of judges. That's high profile, friends. So what's going on? Are there more to come? Of course there is. This is just the beginning, friends. Just the beginning. And sadly, we're also seeing my past prediction and warning for our friends in New Jersey for wildfires that were going to come into fruition, which have, unfortunately, causing more than 15,000 acres to be totally disintegrated by these fires. And now we have witnessed once again, like we saw in the Carolinas, a teenager being arrested for starting these wildfires. Even though, they're still steering us in the direction of making us want to believe that it's the climate shifting. But how's that possible if these people are setting the fires? Perhaps the one thing that is shifting is the minds of the youth into complete stupidity to do such horrific acts on Mother Nature. At the same time, in the United Kingdom, our friends in the UK, get ready because Gates and friends are about to block out your sun. And really, what is the true reason that they really have this desire to do such a less than smart thing? It is less than smart. We're going to talk about that today because it's really important. Other important topics to cover, including the strange symbolism, very strange symbolism, and many questions around the Pope's funeral rites, church whistleblowers, and was the Pope seeing demons before he passed? Interesting story there if you missed that one. Also, over the past week, viral videos of a man that many are now calling the anti-Jesus. I prefer the false prophet, personally. And we're going to talk about him and Klaus Schwab's new replacement and who exactly could maybe fit the description more so of this coming days of judgment and the anti-Jesus. I know you probably saw those viral videos because everybody's talking about it. Another double prediction that we have to discuss today, flowing into fruition, is the past prediction where I talked about future water wars and conflicts over water. And then in a separate prediction, I saw conflict at the borders of India. Now, India is in a verbal conflict with Pakistan over India's water treaty. And India is threatening to cut off the water that flows into Pakistan. Is this likely going to lead to the water wars that I predicted several years back? It's really starting to look that way now, isn't it? So many wild things are happening across the globe as the month of April soon comes to a close and the May days are about to arrive, friends. And I had a vision of a port explosion, which also came into fruition. including attacks or alleged attacks on Iran, and so much more to discuss today, friends. So get that tea kettle hot, kick your feet up, and get ready for episode number 164 of Tuesday's Tea Time, baby. Beautiful tribe, welcome back to the channel, and if you are a newbie here, welcome aboard, friends. Welcome to the tribe. Now you can get the vibe with the tribe. And if you want to continue receiving great content, predictions, prophecy, and lots of truth, and again, you want to vibe with this tribe, then smash that there subscribe button, the bell and all, so that you get notifications, and Team Spirit welcomes you to the tribe. So on this past Sunday, the 27th, we had this lovely shift in energies. If you have not noticed, you may notice that you may feel a little bit lighter than you have in previous weeks, since the new moon rung in the sign of Taurus on the 27th. Perfect time to get your seeds planted, whether it's the seeds to your garden or even more importantly, the seeds to your future. And remember, there's still plenty of time to move on these seed plantings, as we are flowing through the beginning stages of this waxing moon cycle. The sooner the better. I'll be doing some planting and transplanting tomorrow. I didn't have time on the new moon, but I will have time tomorrow. Ringing in at the end of April, tomorrow actually, I'm recording this on the 29th. It's about 10:45 a.m. here in beautiful Arizona, Sedona, Arizona. And ringing in tomorrow on the 30th, we have Venus entering Aries after Aries exits that dreamy sign of Pisces. And this is a great time where we can start to experience love becoming much more passionate, more spontaneous, and this energy of fierceness behind it. So expect there to be heightened desires, heightened drama that's going to come with that, especially even in people's relationships, and a very strong potential for these quick and sudden changes around relationships with, again, love relationships, your personal relationships, but also we'll see quick, sudden changes in relationships when it comes to global governments and world leaders. It's going to be interesting, very interesting. And this is a time to really go after what it is you really want. Do not wait for permission. You don't need permission to go after what you want that brings you joy and happiness, because Venus in Aries, that loves to reward courageous, self-love, and fearless pursuits. So get out there and make that pursuit for yourself. Excuse me. We also have many important alignments coming up in May, beginning on May 2nd. So if you want to know the full details of these alignments, be sure to tune into my May forecast and predictions, for May is going to open up an amazing door of opportunity. That will premiere tomorrow, Wednesday, the 31st of April. And before I move on to today's hot topics and predictions, be sure to sign up for the free newsletter down below and check out all the other links below to all my other social media platforms. And a big thank you to all the monthly supporters on YouTube and Subscribestar platforms for giving me the honor of preparing all this free content for everyone else. So many hot topics and predictions coming into fruition over the past week. Craziness is sweeping over our planet for sure. And you'll notice people, as Spirit warned, at least actually 4 to 5 years ago, people seem to be getting just crazier and crazier, friends. At least it seems that way. You can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure some will. But it just really seems that way. Spirit called it many years back. The crazy happening right now in Europe right now relates clearly to two of my past predictions and visions. First, in my April's forecast, Spirit warned of coming cyber attacks. More major cyber attacks that would affect grids across the globe. This was even in my 2025 world predictions and forecast. Add this to my visions of seeing a big city go completely dark, and our friends in Spain, Portugal, and parts of France are all seeing this reality check taking place in their neighborhoods as a massive grid goes completely out, or actually likely multiple grids. And that plunged people, hospitals, trains, airports, and even the internet have all gone completely dark in those countries. So check out this report real quick and what they are blaming for the cause of this blackout to hit Europe. I find it a bit shady. Check it out.
On Monday, that paralysed public transport caused large traffic jams and delayed trains and flights. Utility operators sought to restore the grid, with the cause yet to be confirmed. However, Portugal's grid operators said a rare atmospheric phenomenon in Spain, due to extreme temperature variations in the country's interior, caused the power outages. In parts of Portugal and Spain, traffic lights stopped working, causing gridlock. Transport networks were halted and people were trapped in the metro and in elevators. In Madrid, hundreds stood in the streets outside office buildings, with a heavy police presence around some important buildings. The capital's mayor urged residents to minimise all travel and stay at their current locations if possible. Airports in both Spain and Portugal reported delays and the activation of emergency generators. The Spanish and Portuguese governments met to discuss the outage, and a crisis committee was set up in Spain, sources familiar with the situation said.
Rare atmospheric phenomenon? I mean, yeah, sure, it's very possible. I mean, we see lights blinking all over the planet that's abnormal. If you have plugged into that information and truth that's out there. Now it's now that's a new one for me. I don't know about you. Atmospheric phenomenon causing grids to go down. Now I would believe it a lot more if they happen to blame it on a major solar flare. Although there happen to be no significant solar flares prior to this massive blackout. So they can't blame it on that. And this was in my past predictions. We discussed massive blackouts many times, along with my repetitive warning from Spirit to always be prepared, not scared, and have backup power, water, and food sources wherever possible and whenever possible. And this is what I warned in a video that I posted back on November 18th of 2024, the video was titled 8 Shocking Events for 2025. And I put this out again back on the 18th of November, 2024. And thank you to Cranium Lost in the comments who posted the timestamp in the comments. So give a listen. Numerology for 2025 is all about endings. This could also bring about with it major power outages and other types of outages. Even a potential for complete failure of some smaller grids in 2025. Some of the negative effects on electronics and grids is going to be a result from very serious sun flare blasts that are going to be coming in 2025. And I believe this is going to be in the springtime between March and April. So make sure, again, you have backup ways of energy and all that you need just in case you happen to be one of those grids that goes down in 2025. You heard the warning very clearly, friends. I stated March, April. And the first massive blackout hit, the biggest one in Europe, right in April. We're still in April. And obviously, there's going to be, unfortunately, a lot more to come. Remember, Klaus Schwab even hinted to this happening. Just like they hinted to a pandemic happening prior to that. It's like they have a crystal ball and they know exactly what's going to happen. So think about this. 3 days of no power, and people are going to start looting grocery stores. Grocery stores will be completely empty in 3 days. Restaurants and fast food chains will get looted. And after a week, there would end up being riots and people busting into people's homes to seek food and water. All just 7 days. Within 30 days, half of the people were completely wiped out, at least. So this is why Spirit has been warning us for years now to be prepared and not to be scared for when an event like this occurs where you live, and it's looking pretty inevitable at this point. If you're prepared, you're not going to have anything to worry about, friends. Prepared as far as having food, water, necessities, a way to cook, and protection. Speaking of protection, just going to throw this in there to our friends in Canada. I know many have to tell me when I'm wrong. It's okay, I could be wrong once in a while. I'll admit that I was wrong, but I'll also tell you that I told you Carney was part of the WEF puppets. So, Canada, you better stock up on your ammo and your pals because your government's going to be coming for them really soon. You watch. So the facts around this massive power outage is likely going to be a cover-up. and put to sleep very, very quickly. They're going to cover it up and put it to bed, friends. And they do not want people to know the risks of another cyber attack on the grid that is inevitably coming. This was a practice run, in my feeling. A practice run like they did here in the United States with the taking out the networks last year. Remember that? A practice run controlled by, of course, China, Russia, and North Korea hackers. According to my spirit guides, that's where this came from. And yes, there will be grid problems and outages in the near future that we will be able to blame on atmospheric phenomenon, or more likely solar flares. But not this time, says the spirits. Not this time. They just want you to believe that. And there's going to be ones that are going to be much bigger than this. They could blame it on all the solar, when they blame it on solar activity, I believe it. Because we can confirm if that's true by looking at the sun's activity. And like that of Europe, the biggest outages to come. But there's going to be even bigger ones to come, says the spirits. And this is going to come from major cyber attacks. And this was just their little practice run, friends. And look at the chaos it caused in just a few hours. Now, again, imagine 3 days. Now, I don't know if they restored power over there in those countries yet. Hopefully they did, because I'd say they'd probably be past that 24-hour mark. I saw a video of people in the grocery stores and rushing through. I guess some of the grocery stores had some backup power. But, those backup powers only last so long. A lot of them, like in hospitals, run on fuel. And what happens when that all runs out? And now in the UK, they want to block out the sun so that you can't, when power outages go, they block out the sun. And how are you going to charge your solar stuff? Right? No coincidence that they released those advertisements, too, across Europe. Do you remember back in late March? Remember, I forget who it was. I don't know your politicians and people over there, but I remember the woman doing the commercial warning citizens that they needed to have an emergency bag. We call it a go bag. I forget what she called it. And in that video, she was telling folks that they needed to have this, desperately needed to have this with a flashlight, a lighter. A flashlight and a lighter? Usually they tell you to pack food and necessities in your go bag. Flashlight, a lighter, a lighter perhaps for playing the blackouts? Just a thought. It's interesting how they released that commercial. I think it was around the 26th of March. I didn't have time to go look it up for you, and I'm sure our friends in the UK know because it was on their tellies. Well, I see more cities going dark, unfortunately. The Spain outage seemed to occur in the daytime hours, luckily for them. Likely a lucky move, very lucky move for them. What if it were to go down, say, in the early evening, say, just after dinner time, before dark? That would be a very bad scenario. Or say it went out at 7 p.m., 8 p.m. when it is dark. If that were to play out, which I feel it will in due time, my feelings are, again, that this is just a test. So keep your eyes on nearby cities in those same areas for the next test. So those countries, just keep an eye on Europe for more tests. Perhaps a massive outage affecting the United Kingdom, England, France, and once again on a much larger level. I also had a vision where I saw the Eiffel Tower go completely dark. And I see a big outage in the Big Apple, New York City. And major outages that are going to sweep across China and Japan in time, too. July is going to be a big outage month. Remember me telling you that. You heard it here first. So remember, friends, this can happen no matter where you are. So, again, don't be scared. Get out and get yourself prepared. Sadly, we are seeing my past prediction and warning for our friends and my friends and family in New Jersey around wildfires coming into fruition. Burning more than 15,000 acres in the New Jersey Pineland region. And let's rewind to episode number 149 of Tea Time from January 14th of this year. This was my warning for New Jersey and wildfire activity. Check it out.
Now, I also see a vision of wildfires hitting Texas, especially down near the border, the southern border of Mexico. They may even be fires Mexico is going to be having major fires as well. And then also New Jersey, our friends in New Jersey. I see fires, big fires in Jersey. And I also see a fire at the boardwalk in Jersey. A building on the boardwalk. It's not the whole boardwalk. It's not an inferno, but it is a fire on the boardwalk in Jersey, probably Seaside Heights. And as far as the fire, I feel like it's closer to the upper and northern parts of Jersey. Probably the New Jersey Pinelands, because when they go up, boy, oh boy. So be safe out there. And if you're in any of those areas, always be prepared. And when they start canceling your policy, you might want to just reconsider.
I hope my friends in New Jersey and the tribe in Jersey is heeding the warning and continue to be mindful and be prepared. It just seems like we're not quite safe anywhere. Although, if you hold yourself in a bubble of white light like I do my home and property, know in your heart and soul that your home and property will be safe and you will be safe, and that'll be so. But again, if you're not prepared, there's no safety issue. There's a safety issue that comes. So just always be prepared. There's a common sense aspect to that. And now we have discovered once again, like the Carolina fires, that teenager has been arrested for starting these wildfires. Interesting. Even though we are still being told that this is all due to the climate. And perhaps it's the shifting of the minds of the youth that's into complete stupidity that can commit such atrocities that we can blame. No, they'll still blame it on the climate. And we all know very clearly that all these massive wildfires have been set one way or another. We know this. We've showed evidence of this. And it's not natural, and it certainly is not all the climate. Not all of it. Maybe a small itty-bitty percentage of it. That's about it. Not to mention that they stopped doing in many places, they stopped doing the controlled burns. They stopped going in and cleaning up the forest. The forest needs to be cleaned up. They need to do controlled burns. They need to clean that stuff up. And I've seen some video like of California where they stopped doing that. And, that stuff just keeps piling up, just giving it, more fuel to build up in these wooded areas and forests, which help feed their fire agendas. And you heard the clip in the continued warnings that I made for wildfires in New Jersey and all the way up into New York. More on that in my May forecast and prediction. So again, be sure to check that out. Now states like Florida, and hopefully soon Arizona as well, and many others, are banning the global engineering. We talked about that, I believe, on last week's show or the previous week. And the many methods that they use to block out the sun and manipulate the patterns of our weather. The globalists, they need to move their operations elsewhere because they're not going to be able to do it in Florida, and hopefully Arizona will pass this soon. And friends in the United Kingdom, hold on tight, because Gates and friends are coming to your neck of the woods with plans to start blocking out your sun. Crazy, friends. What is the reason? What is their really true desire to do such a less than smart thing like blocking out the sun? The sun is life, the water is life, and without neither one, we're screwed, friends. Literally. They tell us that, it's all to cool down the planet, of course. While we know that humans, even animals, plants, honeybees, all need sunlight. Without natural sunlight, folks end up becoming sick. They get sickened with diseases, and they spread things like the spread of things like, say, the flu. They ramp up when there's less sunlight. That's why we have flu season in the winter time, when the sun's not as strong. Think about that for a moment. So blocking it out year round would make flu epidemics last all year round. Not only that, it would begin to wilt the entire health of people, animals, and the planet. Blocking out the sun, the globalists probably likely believe in their psychopathic minds that this is going to prevent the light codes of ascension from awakening humanity. Even though that ain't going to happen. They're not going to block the ascension codes. They can try, but it's not going to happen, says the spirits. And also, again, they likely want to just make us sick, especially being you got Bobby Kennedy banning all the chemicals and the dyes and the geoengineering. Yeah, I think they're panicking right now, friends. And this whole thing is just a really bad idea, especially for our friends over there in the UK. And we all know it, we all feel it, and we all need to really put a stop to it some way or another. Friends in the UK, step up. Stop Gatesing, friends. Because it's already rainy and always dark there as is. You want it to be darker? Soon it shall be. And as many of you know, I've been warning Turkey, the country Turkey and Ecuador, on a different note here, of incoming earthquakes, and which were both hit over the past week or so, shaking things up quite a bit. Another place that I pointed to on the map and warned in the forecast was our friends down under in Australia, who also got a bit of a shaking from Mother Earth. And Spirit warns our friends down under that a much larger one is going to hit within 100 miles of that recent shaking. And it's going to shake things up a little bit more. This could be coming in the coming weeks. I would look for major earthquakes around the weekend of May 10th and May 11th. And then also the window of time between May 10th and May 14th. Times to look for with big earth events and earthquakes. Another very fortunate prediction that flowed into reality, unfortunate, not fortunate, excuse me, that flowed into reality over the past weekend was when I warned y'all to stay away from crowds. Stay away from sidewalks. Be mindful. And be very, very extremely mindful if you're at any kind of outdoor markets or any kind of outdoor festivals. For I saw several incidents taking place with crazed individuals, using large vehicles as weapons. And so far, sadly, in, where was it, Vancouver, I think? I think it was Vancouver, but Canada overall. There were sadly 11 people who transitioned after a vehicle sped through a market in Canada. And may I point out that number 11? I thought that was interesting. The 11 master number that they use often in the Freemasonries and the Illuminated ones. So prayers to all those in Canada suffering from the loss of this horrific tragedy that was happening during a festival for, I believe it was the Latino people. Horrific. Now, they can't blame it on fear attacks. I mean, it was, but it wasn't from outside the country. It was from some, what they say, mentally ill individual within Canada. Unfortunately, friends, I see more of these types of tragedies taking place, and I feel that we are going to see 2 more occur in Germany. I feel one occurring in France, not far from the Eiffel Tower. Some kind of outdoor gathering is what I see, near, within miles of the Eiffel Tower. I see one occurring in the United Kingdom. And this one, to me, in the United Kingdom, feels like it's related to some type of outdoor musical event or musical festival. So, friends in the UK, tell your little ones to be careful with those festivals. I wouldn't let them go. unless I went with them. Now, I had a vision of a truck packed with propane and likely other types of boom booms. And I see this truck charging into a military base of some sort. And I want to tell you, I want to tell them, like at the military base, do not shoot. Do not shoot this person. Don't shoot at this vehicle. Because I feel like shooting is exactly what the perpetrator wants to happen in order to ignite things up even bigger. So I feel many of these attacks on military bases are coming. A few here in the United States, New Jersey just popped in my head. Parts of Europe and the Middle East, and one in the Middle East feels like, again, American bases, military bases. So protection for our troops, please, Lord. And as I stated in, I believe, 2025 forecast and predictions, we are going to see an uptick in fear-related attacks on innocent civilians. So always, friends, be mindful, no matter where you may be wandering off to anytime in the near future. And even in the distant future. And remember my prediction, I mentioned Easter attacks. I felt like Easter attacks and something big was going to happen on Easter. And then we felt like nothing seemed to happen. Well, we were incorrect about that because many of us forgot that this did come into fruition. Because on Easter, remember, Russia attacked innocent Ukrainian civilians. Not cool, Vlad. Not cool at all. Let us move on. Conflicts and debates over the water. Water is life. And you know those globalists want nothing more than to take our rights from water. Just like the new replacement for Klaus Schwab. That guy was the CEO of Nestle. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But he believes that you can't fill up your swimming pool and you're not allowed to wash your car because it's a public, it's whatever he says. We'll play the clip later. Crazy. Nestle, who goes into towns and digs up people's water and drains their reservoirs and then turns around and sells the water back to them. They've been banned in so many counties, so many states. Yeah, Nestle. That's water, friends. It's happening. It's starting. And with this guy in charge of the WEF, no, not good. So this leads to another double prediction that we have to discuss today flowing into fruition. And it's the first of the past predictions, go back a few years ago where I said that the Spirit said there'd be future water wars and conflicts over water. And then a separate prediction, I saw conflict at the borders of India. Now, India is currently in a big verbal conflict over India's water treaty with Pakistan. And because of fear attacks that have been happening in India, you probably know the story, but in case you don't, India's over it. They're tired of it because they have traced all these fear-mongering attackers back to Pakistan. And no matter what they try and what they do, they still keep getting these attacks on their cities and their innocent people. So the head guy or whatever they call them over there in India, threatened to abolish the water treaty because the water is technically India's. It comes from India and then it flows over there into Pakistan. They had an agreement of the treaty. And here, Pakistan actually uses more of that water than India does. And India's got water problems. That makes no sense. So Pakistan threatened India with a nuke. I didn't even know they had one. I had no clue. I know India has them. And they also claim to start a conflict, or a conflict is going to start in coming days. And that we should all very much believe that this is going to be the case, friends. If they say it, they're going to do it. And it makes sense to pass predictions on water conflicts. India claims consistent fear attacks again on their cities come from Pakistan, which is likely 100% true. And now India's cutting off their water that feeds their rivers. Well, they haven't yet. They threaten to do so. They will. They're serious. It's going to cause conflict. Especially when Pakistan sends in more fear attacks. A big one that even affects tourists in a hotel. Spirit shows me that now. I see visions of movements on the borders of India, as I've seen in the past, and I feel somehow India is going to soon be dealing with China on their borders as well, which that was in the past prediction. I would have never thought Pakistan. And in my visions, I saw tanks, big old military tanks and military movement, and then I saw in my visions these tanks shooting towards mountainous areas, which would be India shooting towards Pakistan, I would imagine. So it's about to go down, friends, between India and Pakistan. Let's hold in the light. That's not the case, but when it comes to water, water's life. Now, I see other conflicts igniting over water as well in the Middle East between Turkey and Iraq. I see issues rising once again over water here in the United States, mainly the Colorado River and several of the big reservoirs that will begin to go dry again during these coming summer months. This is also going to become an issue with water in parts of Europe, France, and the United Kingdom. Not that will lead to conflict or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that things arising. I see water coming into a part of the United Kingdom being trucked in for some reason, maybe due to some type of a weather event that's coming in the coming months. So friends, again, stock up on that water. I don't know what kind of hurricanes you get, but something's going to be hitting that area big and hard. Flooding. I'm going to say likely the summer, early fall months between, say, July and September. That's my feeling. But this will all lead to water controversy, friends. And remember this, friends. Always ensure that you have a place to get water. And a good filtering system like those straws, they work in case of emergency. Water is life. You can only go with water for a very short period of time. You can go without food for a long time. You can go over a month without food, but you cannot go without water. So have a plan just in case. That's why spirits brought me where I am. Got a nice creek right out back that comes right out of the mountain, fresh spring water. I mean, I wouldn't drink it out of the creek because people swim in there. But if it came down to it, I would definitely fish that water out of that creek and boil it. It's good water, actually. Except when people swim in it. Especially just up the road, the park, where they all go swimming on the weekends. And that all flows right down into my backyard. No, thank you. Now, in the wintertime, it wouldn't bother me. You could probably drink it right out of the creek and you'd be fine. It comes right out of the mountain. Now, when I go further up the road, I can pull my own water right out of it, fresh, and it's good. Nobody's swimming in that. That's where I get all my water, actually. But these are things you need to consider, friends, because these are times of tribulation, and it's only just begun. Moving on to ports and shortages. A few years ago, actually going back to, I believe it was late 2021, Spirit started warning us to begin stocking. Actually, no, I rewind that. It was actually the beginning of 2020, before lockdowns, that Spirit told us to start preparing and stocking up for food and whatever else. And then it was late 2020 and into 2021 where I did videos specifically on shortages and empty shelves coming in the future. Folks, of course, pressured me that I was wrong because, when things don't happen right away or they don't happen in the same year that I predict them, then they're null and void. I continuously remind folks about 2017's predictions of seeing people with masks on and predicting a major outbreak. It took 3 years for that to come into fruition. So it's been quite a few years since I made these videos and predictions around empty shelves, potential, shortages, and even famine in some countries and areas. Now, look what's happening, because this looks more plausible now than it ever has, especially even here in the United States, as we see ports, at least here in the United States, with very little or no activity happening at all. You can bring up, how you see the airplane paths. You can bring up the websites that show you where all the airplanes are. They have that for ships too. When you pull that up and look at the ships off the coast of China, they're all just sitting there. The ones that usually come to the United States. Not only that, China pulled a fast one and shipped a whole bunch of empty containers here and laughed at us in the background. Interesting enough. And then there's no activity at the ports in Los Angeles, California. Nothing. Go look at the map of the ships. And what's sitting there? Nothing. Usually there's lines of ships waiting to get into Los Angeles ports to bring stuff in. Nothing's happening. China again sent us empty containers. And soon this past prediction is likely going to become a very harsh reality in many areas. Not to mention my predictions around attacks at ports and my continued vision of seeing very large explosions at ports. I even had a vision of a large ship that appeared to purposely go full throttle right into a shipping port, which that particular prediction has not come into fruition yet. Whereas the large explosions, however, that port explosion did occur over the weekend in Iran. And look at the size of this explosion, rocking the second biggest port in Iran. You can even see another angle of this huge explosion. And apparently there have been several random major explosions that rocked several parts of Iran since this first one at the port. I can't confirm where those other explosions were, but they were random or not so random. And we should all know very, very well exactly who is responsible and behind these large explosive devices being ignited in Iran. The same folks that ignited people's cell phones. Remember that? Yeah, now imagine if the United States or someone else were to do that. Boy, that would be such a big deal. But, blowing up people's cell phones, that's okay. Blowing up Iran's ports without actually, saying that there's a conflict. Not cool. Not cool, Israel. I know you're behind it. And I'm sure United States helped with it in the long run too. And we are going to see Iran's going to conduct investigations as they should. And I guarantee you this is going to point directly to Israel, and they're going to deny it. They'll find parts and, little parts and things that they find after explosions that are going to lead right back to that. Some of those parts will even lead back to the United States. This is literally an act of conflict without actually declaring an act of conflict. Spirit shows me that Iran has been orchestrating a retaliation in the near future. A retaliation that goes back, a while ago that they have been orchestrating. It's probably why Iran is showing off all their underground tunnels and everything else that's going on. Their retaliation. I don't know exactly what that means, but Spirit says they're working with 2 other countries to do this retaliation, or 2 other countries are helping them. Now, Spirit didn't clue me in on who these countries are. An easy guess that one of them is going to be Russia. Maybe the other one's Turkey. Not sure, but definitely one's Russia. Time will tell. So let's hold the entire planet Earth in the light and in love so that peace does eventually prevail. Conflict looks inevitable at this point, but we could still hold in the light that peace. Because as John Lennon said, give peace a chance, friends. Give peace a chance. When we talk about peace, we also talk about justice in the justice system. That's another big part of my forecast and predictions for May 2025. So again, be sure to check that out. You'll recall many, many times that I have discussed it going back several years, predicting high-profile arrests, celebrity arrests, politicians, high-profile people. Since then, we first witnessed, after I first made that prediction, the whole Epstein thing broke. And then I continued, Spirit said more to come. Another big high-profile celebrity will be arrested. Along came P. Diddy. And then we saw that fake politician, George Santos, who stole all the people's money. We saw him, we saw that go down. We saw the arrest of North Korea's former leader, or South Korea. Why do I keep saying North? South Korea's former leader, who decided to declare martial law, also in past predictions. So, we see all this playing out already. And over the past week, here in the United States, we're continuing to see it play out as 2 judges have been arrested. 2 so far that I know of, maybe 3. All being accused of aiding illegals in escaping, which is just pretty crazy if you think about it. Speaking of illegals, they're all pressuring, President Trump about I know I'm not supporting him here, by the way, but how he's, getting rid of the illegals. Do you know which president got rid of more illegals than any president in the history of the United States? Obama. Now, I'm sure by the end of Trump's reign, he'll probably beat Obama. But as of now, Obama's the leader in deporting people. Remember the kids in cages? People forget very easily about things that happen under other presidencies. It's amazing to me. Now, of course, under other presidencies, we didn't see judges getting arrested and others that are about to get arrested, because Spirit says that this is going to get crazier and crazier and more arrests are to come. Shocking, very disturbing arrest. Disturbing on the aspect of P. Diddy and the truth that comes out with it, but also disturbing in arresting a judge, for example, or arresting a politician. This isn't just playing out here. This is going to play out in Canada and many other places as well. My friends in Canada, again, I admit that I was wrong. I was really rooting for you, but you got the WEF puppet in your country now. Good luck with that. I think I'd be considering packing up and leaving if I was there. I've even thought of, potential, again, if I had to do that here, where I would go. I think it'd be the Andes Mountains of Peru, actually. But it's always good to have a plan in the back of your head just in case. And I'm telling you, I fear for Canada right now, because Carney's going to cause more issues with the United States. They already have Canadians disliking us. It's not us. You could dislike the president, but why are you taking it out on us? We didn't make these decisions. Now you're not buying American stuff. Well, guess what? I'm not buying Canadian stuff anymore either. And I want to support you all over there in Canada. But, it's a mutual support system. You can't blame blame all the citizens. Just like even when we talk about the church. You can't blame Catholics. You can only blame the Vatican, where the power resides and the evil resides. Same with the leaders. You can't blame the people. That's what they want. Division, to divide us, to get us not to like each other. So get out and buy American stuff on purpose. Do the opposite of what they're telling you not to do. See, they're not telling us not to buy stuff here. But other countries, they're telling people not to travel here. You're lost. It's a beautiful country. You're missing out. Love this country. So much beauty. Just right even out my front window and out my back window. So it's getting crazy, friends. More and more arrests are coming. Some are going to be really disturbing. And I'll go more again into detail in my May forecast and prediction. So be sure to check out that video premiere on Wednesday, April 31st. Judgment Day, the papacy, false prophets, and the anti-Jesus. All big subjects that seem to be flying into viral headlines and going viral and trending trends over the past week since the Pope's funeral. The strange symbolism, so much strange symbolism and many questions around the Pope's funeral rites. Church whistleblowers and the Pope literally seeing demons before he passed away. Is that true? Or is it just a conspiracy? Many will say it's conspiracy. Not sure how much truth is around this actual story, but it does come from, mainstream media. And we all know that they are really not all about honesty, are they? Check out this creepy report, and I want to know what you think in the comments below. Check it out.
Justly now, Pope Francis has spent all night screaming at demons who are trying to drag him to hell. The Vatican has confirmed. 88-year-old Francis remains in hospital battling kidney failure, brought on by double pneumonia. But this battle pales in comparison, posed by the beclawed, soul-eating demons from hell.
It would not at all surprise me. It shouldn't surprise you that this could be complete truth, an actual story. Remember, Pope Francis, many people don't realize, was the first and the only Jesuit pope, which apparently is actually against the Vatican rules to have a Jesuit pope and against the laws of the papacy. Now, but they still voted for him. And a grave warning came from one cardinal, who I tend to admire quite a bit for stepping forward and speaking truth. This cardinal came about some time ago. He's been around for a while speaking truth. Listen to what he has to say. And again, personally, I like this guy. I like somebody that has the guts to stand up against power structures. Give a listen.
Fourth revolution theorized by Klaus Schwab and the family of international finance find in Bergoglio not a neutral spectator, which would itself already be an unheard of thing, but actually a zealous cooperator who abuses his own moral authority in order to support a destra outside the church, the project of the dissolution of traditional society. While ad intra within the church, he pursues the project of the demolition of the church in order to replace her with a philanthropic organization of Masonic inspiration. And it is scandalous. This applies to both, to civil and ecclesiastical world, confirming the pactum celeri, the criminal conspiracy between the deep state and the deep church. It seems to me that in this conspiracy, the role of the Jesuit has been decisive. It is no coincidence that for the first time in history, a religious of the Society of Jesus is seated on the throne of Peter.
Very interesting. And of course, the Vatican went after this cardinal, big time, and probably still are continuing to do so. But he is full of wisdom and truth, and intuitively, I feel like he's being completely honest with us. He's putting his whole life on the line by bringing out these truths. And he's trying to protect the church. God bless him for that. I love the guy. I like his vibe, personally. And if you don't, I don't want to know. Now, you're going to remember I said back in March that I felt that the Pope already passed away. And when he was in the hospital, I guess when he was seeing the demons, right? And I told you, he's gone. He's gone, and they're going to wait, and they're scrambling to plan the next leader, probably another Jesuit, before announcing his passing. And there's no coincidence. But come on, think about this. They announced his passing and waited till the day after Easter, the same day of Queen Elizabeth's birthday. The Queen Reptilian says something, allegedly. Now, check out this whistleblower. This whistleblowing cardinal again, and what he had to say, confirming my feelings that the Pope passed weeks prior, even a month prior. And before I show you this, a little note goes out to all the conspiracy theorists, the very few conspiracy theorists that claim the Pope was taken out years ago, along with Clinton and all these other ones, and that they're at Guantanamo Bay. Save your comments. That is complete conspiracy, and it's not truth. And if you're going to leave it in my comments, it's an easy way for me to click the ban button. Now give a listen to this cardinal and what he said and felt around the Pope's actual passing. Check it out.
It's being given about Jorge Mario Bergoglio's medical condition casts a disturbing light on the way Vatican communications are being managed. There are those who believe that the Pope is already deceased, and that this fact is being kept hidden from the public. It is clear that the Vatican and the Bergoglian Deep Church are in a panic, and we do everything to gather the consensus of the cardinals together around the name of someone who will continue the Bergoglian revolution. There are those who have every interest in burying their own crimes along with those of Bergoglio, while in the United States there is a head-on clash of the US Bishops' Conference against the Trump administration after the scandal regarding the funds of the Agency for International Development, USAID, has brought to light the complicity of the Catholic Church in the lucrative business of immigration. It is necessary to prevent the progressive hierarchy from ensuring that one of their own is Bergoglio's successor, that is, another usurper on the throne of Peter will be their heir and continuator of the previous one. Before hammering the final nails into Bergoglio's coffin, it is therefore essential and urgent that the light be shed on the usurpation he perpetrated and on the occupation of the Catholic Church by a corrupt and treacherous hierarchy whose sole aim is to destroy her.
What I've gathered from all the reports is that the George Soroses of the world, the Bill Gates, everybody involved in this reset, so to speak, and the Holy Father is their spiritual leader. I don't hesitate to say it because I'm not revealing anything that hasn't been all over the news and the Vatican and every place else. Is that they want to control the world population, completely have us under their control. The world population is too big. And so this COVID vaccine has been invented to eliminate us, to kill off a great percentage of the population so that what's left, they have a reasonable hope. I hate to use those words of Bishop Barron, a reasonable hope of killing and controlling the rest of us. So I don't think such a horror book has ever been written, horror novel has ever been written, but it's true. And I believe it 100%. And I think our time is limited.
Interesting for sure, right, friends? And just as it just confirms what I felt all along. What really creeped me out about this entire funeral rites, keeping in mind, again, I was baptized Catholic, for those who feel they need to know this. I was baptized and brought up in the Catholic Church, went to Bible school, did all of it, friends. And I clearly remember Pope John Paul II's funeral rites. Do you remember them? Are you old enough to remember? But to be sure, just to confirm, because it was so long ago, I went back and watched the entire Pope John Paul II's funeral. Scanned through it, but I watched it to confirm whether or not this happened before, because I don't remember such a thing like this ever happening at all. And there was certainly no ceremony at Pope John Paul II's funeral. A ceremonial march, we'll say, like the one they did at the Vatican last week. That creeped me out big time. And it does not get much darker and, in my opinion, much more satanic than this creepiness right here. Check it out. So what do you think about this? And what do you think about all of that? Did you notice the large upside down crosses on the sleeves of those black robes and the black hoods that really reflect, the Klan with the white hoods, except they made them black and a lot taller and pointier? It was just so freaking creepy, friends. And now, the cross, of course, they'll claim is all about St. Peter being crucified upside down. But still, we should be honoring Jesus Christ, not St. Peter. I'd be willing to bet that the next and the final pope at the Vatican ends up taking the name Pope Peter II. You watch. And that's how we'll really know. And if it's not Pope Peter II, the cardinal picked, his first name will be Peter. And I believe there's two of them that are up for vote that are named Peter. And now that'll be really interesting to see what the final pope ends up being. And what if the final pope isn't a white dude? What if it's Peter, the black guy? That would be interesting. But I think overall it would make more sense that they would name this final pope that's part of bringing everything down Pope Peter II. Because, he's sitting on Peter's throne. Why they worship the upside down cross all throughout Pope Francis's funeral instead of actually acknowledging the cross with Jesus Christ on it. Again, this all happened the day after the resurrection of Jesus and Easter. Crazy, friends. I don't know how people don't see this. I mean, y'all will likely do, but I don't know how other people don't see this and know this. It's amazing how easily people are deceived, very easily. So regardless, we are certainly in the days of judgment, friends. In the Vatican and its leaders are in their judgment days. Tribulation begins this year, as Spirit said back in 2016, 2025 to 2032. And we see that this looks extremely plausible at this point in time. Also over the past week, we have this viral video of this man that many are calling the anti-Jesus. I prefer to give him the title of just another false prophet and a psychopathic cult leader, because that's what we have here. And we'll talk about him in a minute. I'm going to show you the video. But it's crazy because, people think he fits the description of the anti-Jesus. But I got to remember what Spirit told me a long time ago about, that anti-person rising up and taking control of the world. I saw that he'd have a problem with his eye and that he walked with a limp. Now, this guy doesn't seem to have a problem with his eye, and I don't know how he walks, but again, it's not him. And he even tries to defend himself too. But first, watch this clip and what this guy says and how crazy it is. Give a listen.
The earth swallowed the false pope. He was killed by the mere breath of the believers chanting Labbaik al Sadiq. and the throne of falsehood was shaken. This miracle is no less significant than the one which occurred at the hands of the believers with Joshua the son of Nun, alayhi salam, when their mere presence around the walls of Jericho and the sounds of their horns caused the mighty walls to collapse. Muhammad and Jesus are brothers, and there are no two messengers closer to one another than them.
Can you believe this person even has their own YouTube channel? And they've been around for quite some time, but it's only just recently that this guy's going viral. And everything that he just said, and there's a lot more, I only showed you a small piece. Everything he says is just blasphemous lies, complete lies. He even says that Jesus and Muhammad were brothers. BS, bro. And I don't know how you get these people to believe you. What's really crazy about this guy is when you plead to him, plead to be his, follower or whatever he calls them. Because there's people online pleading their oath to this guy. Crazy. This guy is a complete psychopathic cult leader. He takes the people that plead their oath to him, takes their blood, puts it in a jar, and mixes it all up and puts it in a fake replica of the Ark of the Covenant. Who puts blood on altars and fake Arks of the Covenant? People that practice Satanism do that. So now, this went so viral that, everybody was talking about it on the internet, calling him the anti-Jesus. And so, of course, he went out and said that, did a rebuttal video saying, I am not the anti-Jesus. And then he points to who he says is, which is another blasphemous lie, because he says it's a nation, when the Bible and Scripture specifically says it's a man, not a nation. So obviously this guy knows nothing about true Scripture and the Bible or any of the teachings of Jesus Christ. Listen to what he says and who he calls the anti-Jesus, the nation that he refers to, which I say the nation could be Babylon. That could make sense, but a nation is not the anti. It would be a person. And his number, as we know, is the 666. Check it out.
I am not the Antichrist, nor do I claim to be the Messiah. The only Messiah to ever come was Jesus, the son of Mary, alayhi salam. 2,000 years ago, he came and was God in creation. So who fits this description of the Antichrist? People have long pondered the meanings of these characteristics, expecting an individual who is blind in one eye with the word kafir written on his forehead. But what if he is not a single individual? What if the Antichrist is many people? What if he is a spirit that possesses an entire nation? The description of this nation is that it devours the whole earth, tramples it down, and crushes it. So it must be a world power, perhaps the strongest the world has ever seen. Only one country comes to mind that fits that description of a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and extremely strong, and it had large iron teeth. This iron beast that tramples over the nations is none other than the United States of America.
There is so much more to this guy and to this story that I could do a whole video on it, and I'm not going to give it the energy. Not going to put it in there. This person's dangerous. He's even listed on the United Nations website as a cult leader, a dangerous cult leader. And then one of his things, I think I have notes here I put somewhere. He said, where did I put it? He says, here's what he said. He claims to be the Mahdi, which in many people's opinions, the Mahdi is really the anti-Jesus. Mahdi's not real. That's the false religion and the false prophets. This guy's a false prophet and a cult leader. He also says, and this is stated on the United Nations website, you can go find it for yourself. It's linked even, I think, on his own crazy website. He states that the blood will flow and that there will be a flood of blood. And he the United Nations warns against this guy. So what's he mean by that? That's a threat. Why is he not being arrested? If you and I did that, especially here in America, they come and lock us right up real quick. Real quick. And if you go back to the beginning of my, 2025 forecasted predictions, we talked about the rise of cult leaders coming up in the future. And look what's happening right now. And this is just the first one. There's lots more to come. And I got specific visions and predictions in my May forecast about cult leaders. You're going to want to check that out. But we said it first back in the beginning of January. Actually, back in December, I said it for 2025. Now we see it happening. And speaking of cults and cult leaders, I just want to mention this crazy guy that just all of a sudden is now taking Klaus Schwab's position. You know him. He's the former CEO of Nestle Corporation. Nestle that steals water from communities and has been banned by many counties in Oregon, Washington. They're known to go in. They buy a piece of land, they drill a hole, they take out all the water out of the aquifers until they're drained, and then the people locally don't have no water left. That's a fact. Go watch some documentaries on Nestle Corporation. They are evil. 100% evil. And so is this guy. Now, interesting enough, when they first showed us this guy, look at his eye in this picture. He's got the weird eye. But now we know about that left eye, red, black eye thing. Obama had the black eye. Pope Francis had the black eye. All the leaders that commit themselves to that leadership soon after end up with that black eye. This guy just got anointed the, leader of WEF. Now he has that eye. Now I'm guessing that eye is going to heal, and he's not the anti-Jesus either. But remember, Spirit said that the anti, and I don't want to say the word, but you get it, the anti will rise in 2025 and we will know who he was. I said that in early 2024, maybe even in 2023. Here we are in 2025, just 4 months through. Got 8 more months to follow through with. Lots of things can happen in the next 8 months. We're only 1/3 of the way through the year. It's going to be interesting. So check out what this guy says about water and how you have no right to wash your car or fill your pool. Even though he's got several multi-million-dollar mansions with swimming pools and jacuzzis, and I'm sure he gets all his cars washed probably every day. But you're not allowed, according to this guy.
Hello, I'm Peter Pravec, the chairman of Nestle. There are apparently some misconceptions about my ideas on water. Let me make it clear from the beginning. I have always supported the human right to water. Everyone should have enough clean, safe water to meet their fundamental daily needs. About 50 to 100 liters per day. But not to fill a pool or wash a car. There is a difference. We must transform the way we think about water. By 2025, 1.8 billion people will be living in regions without enough water. Water scarcity is the greatest challenge we face today. And we need to start recognizing water as a precious resource.
I told you that the person that took over for Klaus Schwab would be way worse. This guy's way worse. Way worse. And moving on to a few other hot topics for the week and a few other little predictions to throw in here. First, I talked about seeing a historic church burned to the ground. Well, we're seeing this play out right now in Memphis, Tennessee, a very significant historic church that's connected to Martin Luther King Jr. Interesting. Was it set ablaze? I bet it was. Now, a couple other things, too. I see an assassination attempt happening in India. I actually believe it's going to be successful. Likely, Pakistan might be in on this. We're going to see a lot more, as I said, big people being taken out, pushed out, and totally, by the assassins. Speaking of which, in Russia, a top Russian military general was killed by a boom in his vehicle. Now, we know who's responsible for that, because if you go to Lewinsky's X page, you'll see that he posted. And pretty much in a roundabout way admitted it. Crazy. Is that what we're going to stoop to now? Because you know what? Putin's going to come for you, Zelensky. That was a bad move. Even though Zelensky probably had nothing personally to do with it. He probably knew about it, but he probably had nothing. He's just another puppet, just like the rest of them. A couple other things. I see a lot of fear attacks, and I didn't even know that there were any in India. But I see something major happening in India with fear attacks. There's sleeper cells already set up close to the borders of Pakistan within India. So friends in India, especially closer to, and I don't know, I'm geographically challenged as to, what's near there and such, but near the borders, big, something really big, something that even includes fire. And then I got up to take a little break a little while ago, and I just had this random vision of this big skyscraper building burning. I don't know why the thought like the Tower of Babel burning. That's kind of what it looked like in my vision, the Tower of Babel. So I don't know what building might look like a tower like that, but I see some kind of big tower building, and eventually it will partially collapse. That was the vision I just randomly had when I got up to take a break. Another one I see is that when it comes to land, mountain land and rural land is going to skyrocket in the future. Whereas places in the city will probably still be expensive, but it's going to be the rural land that's going to skyrocket. And rural land is what the globalists don't want you to have. So keep that in mind. I also had a vision of, remember I said I saw islands rising up from the ocean? Why we see other islands sink from a combination of earthquakes and even tsunamis? I had a recent vision of a big, massive piece of land rising up somewhere in the Pacific. I have no idea where, but it was just a wild vision that came, and this probably likely has to do with the big rift underneath the ocean that I predicted back in 2023 in channeled predictions. That's coming this year. It's going to affect everywhere around the Ring of Fire in some form or another, because that massive rift that happens beneath the South Pacific near Japan is going to ignite things around the globe. So again, all the more reason to be prepared. And then I have this vision, Spirit shows me a massive volcanic eruption that really blocks out part of the sun just in the area where it happens, with dust, 50 miles away from the blast zone. I would imagine that's pretty far. I get that vision now. Spirit shows me. Now again, I have a whole bunch of channeled predictions I just put out about a week ago. Forecast and predictions for May coming out tomorrow, so keep an eye on that. I'm going to keep this as short as possible today so I can actually get it uploaded and done at a decent time. But before I go, one other thing I wanted to mention. Did you hear that the president in the United States is going to change the name of the San Andreas Fault? Yeah, like the Gulf of Mexico, now the Gulf of America. Well, the San Andreas Fault's now going to become Newsom's Fault. I thought you'd like that one. And I'm going to leave you with that little blunder at the end of today's Tea Time show. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and please do always click that thumbs up love button so that you get notifications and so that other content like this shows up on your feed, and so it shows up on new people's feeds so that we get our tribe to grow even larger. Remember to sign up for the free newsletter below. The new newsletter will likely go out at some point, hopefully tomorrow, right in time for the first, with all the astrology, numerology, and all the past content that I have produced in April so that you don't miss anything. So check that out. And thank you to all the supporters again and the contributors to this channel who make this free content possible for everybody else. I thank you with infinite love and gratitude. Until the next time, friends, remember to be bold, be true, be kind, be you. Let your light shine ever so brightly. And have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste, and much love, friends. Much love.